Good afternoon, everybody out there. This is Arjax coming at you again with another tanking guide. This dungeon is a dungeon that you're going to run 10 to 15 times if you're leveling solely through tanking. Thankfully, this dungeon has twists and turns to it, so unlike some other dungeons that you sit around in one room and kill a bunch of people and over again, it doesn't get as boring. It's very straightforward, very simple, but overall I enjoy this dungeon. As you can see here, like always facing the ads towards the back of the group. This is a fairly decent sized pull, and I've wiped here before. I didn't wipe here this time. I'm watching my health, and if it looks like I'm going to die, I'm going to pop some sort of healing thing as I'm running this with the paladin. Yeah, that's pretty much it. These ads are a little bit tougher initially when you first get in here, with your level, with your gear. Your heirlooms do a fairly good job, but this is about the time you start seeing your heirlooms start to slow down, and you get to a point where the dungeon content is a little bit out of the range of your heirlooms. So something you see here, one of the quests is you have to collect like 5 or 6 weapons, well, 5 Valkyrie weapons. Those weapons, it's not really necessary for you to get them all on your first time through. Like I said, if you're tanking this while you're leveling and you're just doing randoms, you're probably at the minimum going to get this 5 or 6 times. And as mentioned in other previous videos, as a tank, your queue times are so low, it doesn't really matter if you get all of the quest items, because you're going to come and do this again. So I was just looking around, making sure that the group was there. For some reason, I didn't think that they were. You're going to see one of the DPS run over here and grab the weapons off to the left. But like I said, I'm not really worried about getting them all. There's more than enough items in the game to accomplish your goal of getting them all. I do try to grab them. As you can see here, I'm going to grab it. But like I said, not necessarily one of those things that you have to do. If I don't notice anybody grabbing them, I'll grab them. Like right there, nobody was going to go grab it. Here they are, not worried about it. Also, if you kept going around that corridor, there's usually a couple more, but not a real big deal. This room you've got to be a little bit conscious of, just like earlier. I tend to pull this a little bit bigger because I know my abilities and I know how I can keep myself alive. For the sake of the video, I pulled this a little bit softer than I normally do because I don't like wiping in videos, and normally if I wipe, I don't include that footage into my videos. These dungeons, these guys, they do a fair amount of damage, so you need to watch it. Here, obviously the healer's doing a great job keeping me up, and I'm really appreciative towards that. So we're going to down these, and then as they start dying off here, I'm probably going to back up and grab the other ones, or they just aggroed like they did right there. So I'm just going to regroup these guys and face them towards the back of the group like always. So that's pretty much that room. It's a very fast dungeon. Actually, you can pull a lot of the groups together, but in this one, you might want to take your time if it's the first time you're running the dungeon, especially just get the feel of things. So, I always like collecting loot. Not necessarily something that is necessary. I didn't realize that there was still an add-on, so I normally don't try to collect unless all the ads are down. So I went back here to grab the other quest item. One of the DPS grabbed it during the pull, but like I said, it's not going to be a big deal. I have 3 of 5 already, and there's definitely more. As you can see here, there's one more. I think I end up getting this one, but overall, very simple. One of the things that I like to do as a tank is to be courteous of others and not necessarily grab them all and not get upset over it. I do grab this one. I know some tanks, when I was leveling my DPS characters, they would get so mad at the DPS running around and grabbing quest items because they wanted them. And that's just, I don't know, it's just kind of like unsportsmanship-like. I had we just had a DPS leave the party there. It appears that the DPS had other things to go. I'd been running a few dungeons with him already, so it just looks like time constraint. He wasn't upset or anything. You can actually pull this group that I pulled here with the boss. Like I said, not recommended early on, but towards your 5th or 6th time going through here, if you have a decent healer that you filled out before going to this point, you might want to. It'll make it a little bit faster, but not overall anything too difficult. The big thing with her is she will turn somebody to ice, and if it's a tank, all the ads will come off you. And like right here, so she summons ads, and so right now it's kind of frustrating in the tank. You're not going to be able to pick those up. That's the other downside to pulling her with the other ads, is if you do that, then she can freeze you, and maybe the ads are just going to be too much for other people. But these ads are fairly simple. It's not a big deal with her. It's just one of those like little mechanics to be aware of. Once she dies, the ads disappear. So not necessarily even relevant to kill the ads, depending on your DPS. Obviously, if you guys are hurting for DPS, you might want to down them just so that you're not taking too much damage. But overall, fairly simple. As you can see there, I pulled up the map. I know this dungeon pretty well, but even so, I do not want to make a wrong turn or go towards the wrong direction to prolong the dungeon for everybody else. As a tank, you play a big factor in how fast you guys run this dungeon, and all dungeons for that matter, so knowing where you're going is fairly important. And you know, as you can see there, I was still running while I checked it and just making sure, re-verifying that I'm going the correct way. With some of these dungeons, you'll find yourself getting turned around a little bit, so I always like to make sure that I'm going the correct way. These ads in here, they're not too powerful, and if you've been pulled, you should have a very good grasp of how well your group's doing and how fast you can pull this. You can pull these, you can pretty much pull all of these. The reason why I didn't here is a lot of times if you do a big pull with overzealous DPS, it's kind of hard to group them all together, and they'll be pulled off in string nail, so then you're going to have to comp them back to you. I noticed that my DPS were starting to pull stuff off of me with bigger pulls like that, so that's why here I've slowed down my pulls a little bit. So these ads, I think you can run past them. Obviously, if somebody aggroes them, you're going to have to go back and grab them, so I just aggro them and make sure that I've got them all aggroed so that nobody's taking unnecessarily DPS. In addition to taking them, they're giving me about 2,000 EXP, which is always good. It's not a significant amount by any means, but they're ads in the dungeon, they're easy to down, and you're going to have to hit the group back here, so you might as well just pull them in, and with the AoE damage that I'm putting out, it really doesn't affect the time in downing them. So I always like to grab all the ads. There's been dungeons where I've tried to skip them and other people aggro them, and it just kind of slows down the whole thing. I find it faster to just pull the ads. I mean, obviously if you can skip ads, you can do that, but a lot of times everybody just wants to get the maximum EXP, so pulling the ads is always beneficial. As you can see here, these ads really aren't going to present you with all that big of a challenge, especially if you've been doing fairly well in the group dungeon thus far. But something worth noting coming up is when you hit level 80, your heirlooms are not going to be that strong for the dungeons. This video is a couple weeks old, so this character's at level 82, and I've been running dungeons with him, and the biggest frustration is the heirlooms. They don't level. Well, they do level, obviously, but at level 81, they're not strong enough to run Cataclysm dungeons. So what you're going to notice is you're going to have to pull very slow, and in a lot of cases I just grab gear that's dropping, even though I know I'm going to replace it, I'll need on it. Normally I don't need on any pieces of gear unless it's a non-heirloom piece, but for level 80 and even 81 I will replace my heirloom gear, and I think it's a good idea, because otherwise you're going to slow down your leveling progression a little bit with those dungeons, but also it's going to be harder on the healer. So another suggestion that you could do once you hit level 80 is to actually go and just buy some green gear and throw it on. You're going to slow down your leveling a little bit because of the EXP bonus, but for items like the shield, that doesn't give you an EXP bonus, or the weapon, and you can replace those with green gear, and it's going to be significantly better than the gear that you're getting, or that you currently have with your heirlooms. And granted, you're going to reuse your heirlooms about 82, 83, so I wouldn't spend a fortune on it, but if that's something that you're really concerned about is the speed, definitely do it. Your trinkets also don't give you EXP, with the heirloom trinkets don't, and they're really not viable until 82, 83 anyways. But yeah, definitely if you're looking at tanking solely all the way to 90, replacing your heirloom gear at 80 to continue tanking, a really good idea, and it'll really help your progression a lot faster than just staying with your heirlooms. Once you hit 82, 83, it starts to even out, and you can go back to your heirloom pieces. I wouldn't really suggest moving back as far as your like weapons and trinkets until after 82, but for the leveling pieces, like your cloak, your chest, your legs, definitely reinstating those at 82 isn't going to be a significant decrease in your performance, but it will bump up your EXP, so that's a great idea to look at. And I only mention that because this dungeon is one of the last dungeons you're going to be running until you hit level 80. And there's other dungeons you can run once you hit level 80, but they're not going to give you the EXP that Kata is. And you're not going to get the random dungeon bonus. So it's always worth looking at. And even if you want to run those other dungeons, it's good you'd be overgeared. And there's nothing wrong with being overgeared for something. It definitely makes it easier. And if you've been leveling with all heirlooms like I am here, you're going to miss being overgeared. So this guy is fairly easy. You can actually pull him down to the other group of ads right behind you, especially if you've been running this dungeon with the ease that we have been. I don't for some reason, but that's fine. Something else worth noting is you can summon a mount here, and you might be like, oh well, that's just kind of a waste of time, it's gonna take more time to transform. But as you notice there, they started running when I summoned my mount, and I definitely beat them here long before they got here. So as a tank, you always like to be in front. That's a great option, especially if you have like a monk or something that's just trying to run through the dungeon as fast as possible. So here I just go ahead and I transform, because as you can see, everybody's ahead of me, and I'm actually going to make it to the boss before the hunter does. And it's always easier to keep aggro than pull it off. Luckily for us on this dungeon, the hunter was pretty well experienced. I only say this because they didn't have their pet out attacking people. And, well, they had their pet out attacking people, that's not what I meant. They didn't have their pet haunting things, and that's always a nice thing. You can see there, somebody just randomly died. They got one-hitted. Not really so sure what happened there. And the healer and stuff are going to be like, what's going on? They don't understand it. Me neither. This boss can one-hit DPS. I can't tell what his HP was at. I've never been one-hitted at the boss, except for at this point right here where he transforms. And if you get hit with that, you're pretty much going to go down, so you need to back away from him a little bit. Other than that, this dungeon's very easy, very straightforward, as you can see here. This guy's going to drop pretty fast. And as a tank with this dungeon and on these bosses, you can communicate fairly well. As you can see here, we're all talking. Nobody's under stress. I almost die here. I popped my self-heal there, but that's pretty much the end of the dungeon. He drops. End of story. Something you can do here that I've mentioned before is teleport in and teleport out, and turn in your quest. If you like this video, please like, comment below, and subscribe. Arjax out.